Hello and welcome to UC Today. We are live at CASA 25 and I'm delighted to be joined by Thomas Howe of Strawlet, CTO at Strawlet. Thomas, How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. In fact, this is a great day for us because this is the first day I'm CTO of Econic, our new spin out.
Oh, terrific. Well,
yes.
Congratulations.
We're very happy for that, yeah.
And
great day.
How is your event going so far?
Very nice. I love coming to Cape Pasa and the event here because really I know only about 20% of the people and they're the best people. and so meeting the other 80% is really great.
And I think it's a very interesting theme for this year's show. It's intelligent engagement, which I guess is a synonym almost for how do we communicate to business users the outcomes of the mobile revolution, of the CPaaS revolution. There's been so much talk about the exciting features. What is the tangible outcomes, and what's your stance on that?
So my stance is that that's the idea, and I think until very recently we haven't had a really good opportunity to even measure what the outcomes would be. One of the hardest things about communications in general is how distributed and how heterogeneous it is. And even when you aggregate to a CPaaS, you can only kind of see what's in that CPaaS place. And it's hard to measure the outcomes of a communication because the outcomes are distributed in the system, not just in the CPaaS, right? So one of the things that I'm working on is the new IETF Beacon standard, which allows you to capture and record conversations no matter where they happen, and then bring them to the places that could be analyzed. So so a lot of the value chain gets collapsed because of that. So for instance, if you're using a CPaaS, it's really difficult for you as the vendor to know how the business outcome was. But were you to actually analyze the conversation using AI or whatever it happened to be, then you'd have not only a much deeper understanding of what happened, because you could now understand the conversation, but also over time, because instead of just doing it for one conversation, you can do it for all conversations. So just as an example for that, today we often measure customer experience in NPS, and NPS is Net Promoter Score. It's a way of saying how many people would recommend this versus not recommend this, and that's the easy calculation. But to do it, we have to do surveys and after the call surveys, and it's a difficult thing to understand. But in the next generation of CPaaS, you could simply give that conversation in Beacon form to a robot and say, would the robot, would this person be likely to recommend the service or not? Without even asking them the question. Now you have a complete universal evaluation of all the conversations, and you can see what the outcomes are going to be.
And I wonder if we can dig into Beacon a bit more, because it
Sure.
was one of the key terms of the keynote session at this year's event, yeah. And also it's been nicely trailed for later today as well.
Correct.
What is Beacon, would you say, to somebody who might not necessarily know, and why is it so revolutionary?
Yeah, sure. So a Beacon is a file format, just like a JPEG or a spreadsheet, but instead of it holding an image, it holds a conversation. That sounds kind of abstract. So inside this file, it has 4 parts, and one part is the people who are in the conversation, so a running list of the people. Another part is the recordings, but not just audio. It's audio, video, messaging, email, wherever GDPR would apply to protecting people's data. And then the other 2 parts are analyses, like the ways in which that information has been analyzed by AI or systems. That way we can report on right to know and how is my data processed. And then finally attachments, which are all the context. Is it a real conversation? Is it a deep fake? Who made it? And so all those together are in this file, and it has a 2-sided purpose. The first purpose is to be able to feed the robots. If you think of it this way, AI is distributed. There's all kinds of LLMs out there, all kinds of systems, and people are distributed, and have the right robot at the right place with the right person at the same time is really hard. So you have to make one travel to the other. Data is easier to travel than people. So having the beacon as the standard allows you to feed the robots efficiently across networks. But the other side of it is to keep people safe. So our industry has done a pretty not a great job at doing personal data protections or answering the fundamental questions that data subjects require, like what do you know about me, and I'd like to have this deleted or like to have this corrected. So the beacon is a way of defining a conversation so that you can measure whether or not the good guys did the right thing.
I think we had a pitch earlier saying people who have not heard of Beacon, and then the moment they do, they're like, why have we not had this sooner? And I completely agree. I think that could be quite transformational. And just leveraging your expertise, what are some really great use cases for Beacons that you think, whether that's specific to healthcare or manufacturing or a specific vertical?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. So we've been developing beacons in our company, Strawlid. Again, it's our first day of the spin out. And we're an automotive company, and so we handle 250,000 conversations every month. And we built our business on beacons over the last 2 years. And so we have some real life experience in how this matters. And so the use cases all tend to come around, not all of them, because there's so many of them, but a lot of them around visibility, things that you didn't know was happening before because it was just too difficult to get the information to one place or too difficult for one person to understand all of it. So for instance, we use beacons to record all the conversations that we have with our customers, and we used to think that it would be governance that would be good for us, like, okay, we can understand how we do a better job, and in fact the matter is we did a pretty good job. Not always, but pretty good. But the reasons we were having customer experience problems were things that we didn't know or see. So the classic is we have an angry customer, and if you look at the transcript, you realize he's angry because he came to see a car, drove half an hour to see a car that wasn't there. Okay, that's a bad customer experience, right? But how would you actually know that the inventory was wrong on the website from your communication system? Well, you know it because the customer said, hey, I drove a half an hour to see this and it's not there. And so that sort of dark operational data surfaces all the time in beacons, and something like 10% of all the things that happen inside a company are written down, 90% are not. And it's that real rich data that happens outside the written word that beacons enable. So a lot of visibility stuff. Another one is because you can define a conversation now and you can sign it using, PKI, the internet, you know if it's real. And there's no difference between a deep fake going into an AI system versus a malware going into software. So it allows us to really have some trust and transparency around how we handle recorded conversations.
Terrific. And one final question before I let you go, Thomas. What do you see as the biggest opportunity you're most excited about in CPaaS at the moment? Is it Beacon, or is there another more distinct?
You're going to be surprised. I do see a lot of opportunity in Beacon, but primarily because I think it changes the business model and solves the fundamental problem of CPaaS and or telecom. And so what I'll start with is I'll point to the SIP trunking, which is a classic, the CPaaS opportunity, all kinds of services. Well, what differentiates a SIP trunk from one provider to another? It's cost, maybe it's reliability, and I'm failing on the third. And that's because it could be commoditized. There's no real differentiators, and it's hard for us to make differentiators, which is why it's our job. But now consider what happens if the CPaaS now include beacons. So a beacon is you'd like to think of beacon as a static object. So I'm going to record somebody and I'll put their name on it, and that's my beacon. But the fact of the matter is it's not static because he's a data subject, and at any time he has the right as a person to say, I want to be forgotten. And that means that whoever has that data has to forget them. And so the response to that for the data controllers, the people who are responsible for this person's data, is to delete the data and tell all the data processors, please delete the data. And that's an active job. Right? That someone has to be waiting there to do that, and to do that when the customer asks. And because of that, the business role of CPaaS does not end when the call ends, as far as the end user is concerned.
Mm.
So what that means is for a CPaaS provider, I have an enduring role to be protecting the data of the data subjects, which turns it from a commoditized service into a hosting opportunity.
Mm.
And being a hoster is a much better business model because you can't commoditize what's already unique. Like there's only one of those conversations with me and my agent. It's only one. It should only be one. And so what differentiates this service from that service? Well, that service has my conversations, that service does not. And so it's more than commoditization, it's actually hard to replicate data. And that brings the business models away from the commoditization, which I think is, represented by termination, and brings it more into the business models which are represented by content and data like a Twitter or a Facebook or the like.
Oh yeah, no, that's fascinating. Yeah, it's all seeping into one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
No, well, thank you so much, Thomas. It's been terrific speaking with you. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your event.
Thank you for the time. I will. Thank you.
And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please stay tuned for further CASA 25 coverage with myself, Kieran Devlin. We've been UC today, and we're excited for more CPaaS wonder.